are live after fun troubleshooting. You'd feel like after doing lots of events with tech, we'd have this figured out by now.
I love it.
No. Isla, do you want to kick us off?
I will. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon or evening, wherever you may be. I am Isla Waite. I'm one of the lead organizers for WordPress Accessibility Day 2025. I'll be your host for today's conversation in honor of Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Whoop! Our panel of WP Accessibility Day board members will discuss the current state of accessibility in WordPress and what they see on the horizon, as well as what is in the works for this nonprofit, and also for the event later this year, WordPress Accessibility Day 2025. Let's kick off with some introductions. Can each of you briefly introduce yourselves, your role with WP Accessibility Day, and what you do in the WordPress and accessibility community? Let's start with Amber.
Hey, everybody. I am Amber Hinds. I am the board president, I guess, officially of WP Accessibility Day's nonprofit and one of the lead organizers for the event. I've been involved with it since, I'm going to get this year wrong, 2022. I think 2022 was the year that we revived it. Yeah. And outside of WP Accessibility Day, my day job is I'm the CEO of a company called Equalize Digital, and I run the WordPress Accessibility Meetup, and I occasionally pop in on the WordPress Accessibility team.
Thank you. Bet.
I am Bet Hannon, and I am the treasurer for WordPress Accessibility Day, so I deal with all things money. And then I also lead the sponsors team, which also involves some money, but also a lot of other things with pulling things in. So while everybody else kind of gradually gets busier and busier as the event comes closer, most of my stuff is already getting wrapped up. We were joking about that earlier. Away from Accessibility Day, I'm the CEO of Accessicart, where we focus on accessibility and e-commerce.
Thank you. Last but not least, Joe.
Well, I'm Joe Dolson. I am the board secretary, since we are, between the three of us, all of the officers of the board. And I'm also one of the founding members of WordPress Accessibility Day, so I helped establish the event in 2020. Outside of WordPress Accessibility Day, I am a self-employed freelance consultant working on website accessibility. I'm a WordPress core committer, and I'm the author of several WordPress plugins. And as of recently, I'm also the lead developer for Able Player, the accessible video player.
Thank you, Joe. And I'm going to keep with you, actually, because we have a lovely lineup of questions here, and we're going to get really juicy. So the first one, I'm going to start with you. You were one of the original founders of WordPress Accessibility Day. For people who are not familiar, can you share more about the mission of WP Accessibility Day and how it has evolved since it first started?
So I don't know that I would say that the mission has evolved all that much. We started with the mission to try and share educational information about WordPress and about accessibility, and we've really stuck to that. We haven't even really changed the format all that much. The hardest part, honestly, was that very first year and that very first, like 6 months of prep, where we were basically, what is this event? What are we going to do? How are we going to structure it? And of course, a global pandemic hit in the middle of our process of figuring that out, which ironically didn't change that much because we'd already decided it was going to be an online-only event. So yay, I guess. But as far as
foresight
goes, exactly, yeah. As far as that mission goes, it is an educational organization. It's about promoting accessibility for WordPress. It's about educating both people who are implementing things in WordPress about what they need to do to make sure their products and websites are accessible, but also about communicating to the wider community, what is WordPress doing in accessibility? What are plugins doing? What are themes doing? What is the state of things? And that's kind of what this session right here is about. What is the state of WordPress and accessibility? So, yay, topical.
Amber, do you want to add anything?
I mean, I think it's a little bit worth noting that the original organizing team was all people on the WordPress accessibility team, and it was part of the WordPress community events and all of that sort of thing. And in 2022, when I reached out to Joe and talked about let's bring it back because it didn't happen in 2021, we talked about a lot of different things. And one of the things that we really realized was that being an independent nonprofit organization that is separate from WordPress might give us a little bit more latitude to run the event the way we want and make it a little bit easier to work with sponsors and that kind of thing. So I do think, that is worth noting for people who aren't familiar, is that we are independent of the WordPress Foundation.
And there was one very specific reason that we broke away in 2022. And it's simply a straightforward policy of the WordPress community organization that you're not allowed to pay speakers. And that was a high priority to us. We didn't have any money the first year, so not paying speakers wasn't exactly a major concern. But for the second year, we're like, this is important. We want to do more in fundraising, which is something Bet has helped with enormously. And one of the reasons for that is paying speakers. And I think that's important. It's really important to our community. And it wasn't an option working within the WordPress community organization.
Yeah, and I think I was just going to say, on that note, paying speakers, I think that really speaks to the quality we're able to get. Sometimes we get a lot of higher quality speakers who wouldn't necessarily volunteer their time, but it also enables us to support people with disabilities, which is part of, giving back and our accessibility mission, right? A lot of times people with disabilities are underemployed. And if we're asking them to spend time putting together a presentation, creating slides, practicing however much they want to, and then sharing their experiences or their expertise with our community, we really do feel like they should be compensated for that time.
Absolutely.
Yep. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Sorry, Bet.
There's something about the value that that as an event that we're putting on the speakers. We're not asking people to speak for free, and that is super important. Yeah.
Hey, wait, can I shout out right now while we're talking about this? We're talking about speakers, and our speaker application is open, and we are looking for speakers right now. And if you go to 2025.wpaccessibility.day, you can find our speaker application. I think it closes May 31st. Is their 31st day in May?
and I'll just point out, it's great that some people might like to volunteer, and you're not required to take you can donate your payment, right? So you can donate it back if that's not significant for you, and you just want to feel like you're giving back. You're not under no requirement to take the payment. But
and just a quick correction: the speaker application closes on May 26th. So if you're thinking you have until May 31st, that's trouble. May 26th.
Yes.
That's really soon.
So go this weekend and apply to speak.
I want to say real quick, because I'm not a developer and I'm not deep into a lot of what you guys do, especially Amber and Joe, being involved with this event has opened the door for me, and I'm sure a lot of people, on how much work goes into WordPress core and how many people are involved in the thing we use every day in our businesses. And I think that's really, really important for us to understand that there are actual human beings behind the thing we use, and they actually really, really care about accessibility, which went from 2020 when Joe first began and his comrades began the first event to this, what it is right now, with a really big organizing team, really big. There are so many people involved in this. So I just wanted to point that out. We are opening a door on a world that I didn't know about, and I'm so excited to be involved in. So thank you. Okay, Amber, moving on. You shared earlier this year that WP Accessibility Day had received 501c3 status. What does that mean for the organization? And what are some things that you are all looking forward to this year and in the future?
Yeah, so when we decided to be independent of the WordPress Foundation, of course, we had to figure out, well, what does that mean? We didn't really want to be a business. So we initially partnered with a nonprofit organization called Knowbility, which is based in Austin. It starts with a K, K-N-O-W, Ability. and they are focused on web accessibility, which it was a really great partnership. It super made sense. And they gave us fiscal sponsorship for a couple of years, which helped us to have that nonprofit status through them. But it did come with some added burden of reporting back to them and a lot of other overhead things, which for a very small board and a very small nonprofit with no employees and no one getting paid, we kind of talked about that. Is that really the best long-term scenario? So last
limitations to it. I mean,
yeah, like we couldn't get free Google for nonprofits because we were under their umbrella, so we couldn't get it.
Yeah, so there were a lot of things that cost more, and we couldn't get a nonprofit discount on them. And of course, we're trying to keep our operation as lean as possible. The vast majority of all of our sponsorship dollars covers the actual event itself and the accessibility services and the software required to run the event. So going ahead and getting our own 501c3 status was really exciting, because what that means is it did open doors for more nonprofit discounts or potentially even free things in certain cases, which helps reduce our overhead burden on Bet and June and other people on our sponsors team who have to go out and get the funds to help us operate. I think it also gives us the ability potentially to do more in the future. We've talked about running a bigger event for Global Accessibility Awareness Day, which we might try and explore next year, potentially having people learn through doing and testing or contributing to WordPress plugins. So we have a lot of different ideas that I think we can put into play now that we're our own organization.
Love that.
Yeah.
Anything?
No, I just think it's so exciting to see all the different ways that we are continuing to, grow this. When Joe, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, when you first started out, it was like, well, we're not sure if this will continue, but we'll try it once. And then, things with COVID, but then, you and Amber came back in 2022, and it's just continued to unfold, and that's really cool to see. Yeah.
And that, I want to come back to that whole, whether it would continue or not, because of course it didn't happen in 2021. And ultimately that is because it was an enormous amount of work. And of course, in that particular period of time, everybody was very highly stressed out. Everything was online. There was so much online stuff. It was exhausting. So I think, it's very kind of predictable, really, that it didn't happen in 2021 because we were all worn out. And I'm really glad that Amber reached out to me and said, hey, let's restart this. And partially because she is an organizing guru and offering something that I didn't have, which is organizational capacity. Was really
and pulling people in, right? And figuring out how to pull more people in so that we can share the responsibilities, and that's what makes it work.
Yeah, because 2020, we had a great group of people. It was a really fabulous group of people, but we were, hindered by the fact that in the pandemic, everybody got extremely busy and things got harder and harder. And by the time the event actually ran, it was really very stressful.
That's not fun.
But I will say, I think there's just so much value in everything that we do, and the fact that you started it, we figured out how to restart it. I see a comment from Dave on YouTube. He's saying he's learned a lot about accessibility from our events, and I feel like it is a lot to run, and even at the end, we get. We're all like, oh my God, it's over. And then in November and December, we barely talk to each other. But it's so valuable, and seeing comments like that and that kind of stuff, I really do feel like it does a lot for the community, and it's something that's worth all that organizational effort.
Yeah.
And we have a fabulous team now. There's so many people that do so many things, which is really helpful. Versus the first year when we brought it back, I think there were 5 of us.
Yeah, it was.
Go ahead.
It was definitely challenging the first year. There was a lot to do. We set up so many new ideas and processes, and that's part of the Amber brought an enormous amount of organization to the project, but the starting stages of bringing a lot of organization are actually very labor intensive. So that first couple of years, yeah, those were really intense. They do have the advantage that now we've got a lot of stuff established. We have systems, and that organization is paying off and making things a little bit easier to run now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
There's a humble confidence among the leadership right here that rubs off on everyone who gets involved. And this is my own personal perspective, but that's what I see. And I think that we all accept that this is growing at the rate it should, and it's growing at the rate it needs to. And looking at it year on year, the reach of it, the capacity, the amount of sponsors Bet can pull in year on year, it's so cool to see. And I do think that we draw from your confidence that this is what needs to be in the world, and you're all capable of setting that stage for us to make it happen. It's very exciting. It's so cool to be involved in, and I take this opportunity to say thank you and move on to the next question. Okay, Bet, if people want to support these efforts, how can they help?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, first off, people can attend the event, right? Just come, participate, share the excitement, invite people to come, but kind of boost that participation. Anybody, when registration opens, there's always an opportunity as you're registering to make a small donation. So, as the money person, I would not hesitate to do that. You can make donations as individuals. There's a link shared right there. The link is there. And you can
2020. Wait, I'm going to say it just in case, and so we have it in our captions. So 2025.wpexcessibility.day/donate.
Excellent. So there's a form on the website. That was the link shared. But there are also other ways to donate. We have people who donate through their employers. Sometimes employers have grant programs. We've received a donation from Standard Insurance this year. There are other ways that employers other employers are doing payroll deduction kind of gifts. Sometimes those are matching gifts. We're receiving one from somebody at GoDaddy through their program. So all kinds of ways. So explore ways that you can support through donations in other kinds of ways. We are pretty well set for organizing team this year, but think about maybe participating on the organizing team next year. Kind of put that out there. We are always looking for volunteers, for day of volunteers to help with all kinds of things, including helping run things behind the scenes or host some of the sessions. So you can volunteer on the site. We're always looking for sponsors. We have some silver sponsorships. We've sold out a lot of our sponsorships, and I think that says something about the quality of the event and the value that the sponsors are finding, that a lot of our sponsors come back year over year, and we're selling out those larger sponsorships. We have a few left at the silver level and some bronze, and even micro sponsorships. I'm really proud of the way that we have tried to make it affordable for small agencies and freelancers to even indicate their support and encouragement and sponsorship. And did I leave anything out? I mean, there's a lot of ways that people can support what we do, but sharing things. Volunteers. We're always looking for translators. So somebody put a comment in there that they love how it's not just over when the event is over. We're trying to make that done. So we offer opportunities for people to translate the talks that have been previously given. And we even have found some funding to offer to pay translators for Spanish and French, which are the two languages that have a bigger reach beyond smaller regions, to do that. And so you can find all of these things. You can find notifications and interest things, but sign up for your email, for the email list. Get on our email list and you'll get notified when things are open, when we need volunteers, when we're going to open registration, all of those things.
Thanks, Bet. That was awesome. Okay, so as we know, today is Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and that's why we're live streaming today. Global Accessibility Awareness Day, otherwise known as GAD, focuses on raising awareness worldwide. Amber, you organized a virtual contributor day today. What was the impact of that? And can individuals or organizations get more involved in advancing accessibility within the WordPress ecosystem?
Yeah, so last year, I think right like a week or so before gaad, I went and make WordPress Slack, and I was like, wouldn't it be great if on May 18th or whatever day it was last year, everyone just did accessibility all day? And people were like, that's not enough notice. And I was like, come on, yes it is. You wake up, you go sit at your desk, go work on an accessibility ticket. But so that was, I had a conversation with Joe, and I was like, is this possible? Like, maybe it needs to be planned further out. So this was in my head from like last year. And I was really excited. We had 84 people pledge time to work on accessibility. Not all of them are working on WordPress core necessarily, but there are some people who pledge time to doing maybe some transcription for WordPress.tv or some translations for WP Accessibility Day. And even some people who just said, okay, I'm going to work on accessibility on my own website, which I think is still good, because I think like if you have accessibility issues that you're aware of, but you've been like, this isn't my highest priority. My hope is that if you spend some time today, you might realize it's not as daunting as you thought, or maybe you could figure out a way in your day-to-day to add a little bit of accessibility back in. So I think we'll know the full impact afterwards. Aaron Jorbin ran an accessibility bug scrub in the core channel today, which I thought was really neat because that's something that they wouldn't normally do. And that was like an extra one that got scheduled. It wasn't like a normal bug scrub. So there's that. RT Camp had like 13 of their contributors work on accessibility related things, which aren't normally what they would do. They do contribute a lot to WordPress. So my hope is maybe some of those people will stick around. I'll hand off to Joe, and Joe can like be like, here's how you stay involved on the accessibility team now that I know you can do it. I don't know. But I don't know. I think just getting more out there and trying to get people to do tiny things is maybe like a good first step, because if you do a small thing, then maybe you can do a little bit bigger thing each time. That's my hope.
Some of those things I did that kind of flew by the radar, but weren't you asking people just to like commit a couple of hours? I mean, it didn't even have to be like the whole day. Can you just do 2 hours or even an hour today?
Lunchtime.
Like, yeah, give your lunchtime. Yeah. That would have been a great sell. But I think you're right, Amber. The more we convince people to do even just a tiny bit, it kind of opens the door to say, oh, that wasn't so bad. I could,
yeah. And I will publicly say, which I publicly said on my own pledge, that I am working on today, and I'm like not going to stop until I have it done, the theme accessibility ready guidelines, because that's something that Rian Breitfeld started last year. And then at WordCamp Canada, some of us worked on it, but then I said I would do it after WP Accessibility Day last year, and I was just so burnt out that I moved. So I didn't. But I was like, you know what? This is one of those things, right, that I've wanted to do, but it's just been backburnered or deprioritized. And I said, no, this is like a day to do it. So I am doing that, and I'm working on that. And Joe's going to supervise me to make sure
it never hurts to publicly commit yourself to something, right?
Yes, on a live stream to 32 times however many people.
Layperson, Amber, can you explain exactly what that project is?
Yeah. So there is a tag in the WordPress theme directory on WordPress.org where you can filter themes, and they say they're accessibility ready. And those themes have all been manually reviewed by someone on the accessibility team for a specific list of items. They're not fully web content accessibility guidelines conformant, but they have met at least one point in time those specific items in those guidelines. Joe originally wrote these in 2014, I think.
Wow.
And 2012. Okay. And maybe they were updated in 2014.
I've updated them a couple of times, but yeah.
Okay. It's been quite a while.
I stopped updating them when the documentation site changed such that edits that I no longer had publication privileges, so I could not publish changes. And so any edit I made meant that the page itself was unpublished until I found somebody to finalize it.
Wow.
And I that's a problem.
Oh, yeah,
and I
that's
need to just get access to do that.
I think I got published access to those pages.
Yeah, I might have it now.
Because I went
don't
and
know.
edited
the
something, and
law.
then someone was like, "You're supposed to have a discussion about it first." And I was like,
Oh, when has that ever happened?
dude,
And-
seriously,
yeah.
I just wanted to fix this one sentence. I changed a broken link to a functional link, so I was like, whatever.
Amber, does that tag
But,
extend to page builders, or is that a whole different can of worms?
I'd say that's a whole different can of worms.
Well, a page well, what it could apply to is some page builders have partner themes. So for example, like Elementor has the Hello theme.
Cadence.
If they wanted to get the Hello theme to have an accessibility ready tag, they could request it for that, but not for
The
that.
problem is, of course, that it would need to pass that with no plugins installed. So of course, Hello without Elementor is a pretty minimal theme.
So it might pass.
Actually,
because it might not have
last I
anything
looked
in
at
it.
Hello, there's no way it would pass because it had a lot of gaps. But it's been a while.
I don't know if it has
Cadence might pass.
Maybe.
I
I'm
you
not
don't
going to
have to do that.
hypothesize about these
I don't know.
because, I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, they have to be looked at. But
But I mean, the implication on this is that we're going to update the guidelines, see if there's more things that need to be checked. I am hoping, but it got kind of stalled out because of some of the contribution things, and maybe we can talk about this in a little bit, that there's better documentation in the actual theme search and on the theme single pages, so people have a better understanding of what accessibility ready means. For anyone who is watching and has the power, there are track tickets with design mockups that have been sitting there for about 8 months. I would love for you to go make my ticket a reality. But I think, my hope is that one, we can have a better starting point that gives website owners who maybe aren't accessibility specialists a better starting point, or like more faith that the theme they're selecting actually is kind of giving them that good starting point. And also make it a little bit easier for theme developers to know what they need to do, and for anyone to test these, because that has definitely been a problem when it's human review. Right now, there's not a really clear do this, then do this, then do this, and check these things, pass fail, like reporting system. So we've been talking about some ideas for making it easier, so that if someone wants to volunteer and they're not a developer, this could be a way that they could help support accessibility.
one of the big challenges with this has been the fact that an awful lot of accessibility criteria are difficult to interpret. They're not just cut and dried pass fail. And it's very, very difficult to make a set of rules that are definitely something that you can easily go through and test pass fail, and also cover a lot of things that are actually important. And that's one of the reasons we actually went with accessibility ready, is because ultimately we need it to be something that's approachable for testing more than we need it to be like strictly WCAG compliant. And also there's the things like I was saying about Hello, is like, well, Hello presumes the existence of Elementor. But what we're doing is we're testing themes. So we have to test these themes without any additional plugins and without any additional content. It's all just, what is the theme doing? And frequently, that's just not the whole story. It's like, it's possible to make a website accessible with this theme. It is no guarantee.
I say again, look how much work is going on behind the scenes in WordPress. So many people don't.
And I think this may have been touched on before, but I think it's also really important to use that label accessibility ready to help convey to people that just because you have a potentially accessible canvas does not mean your choices will not mess that up. And that people, I think that's just really important for people to understand, that it's not, you're never going to get accessibility as just sort of an out of the, completely just out of the box kind of thing, that your choices that you're making are, impactful. The colors you choose and all of those pieces.
Yep.
And so you have to say accessibility ready as a way to try to help communicate that to people as they're putting together sites.
Well said, really well said. Because you could take it so far and away from accessibility that it wouldn't even matter that it was accessibility ready.
We should have a contest sometime to take an accessibility ready theme and see how badly we could do. How bad.
I think we'd have to all use the same theme just to just because
I don't know. Pick any accessibility ready theme in the repository and make a bad accessibility experience.
Some of them are already bad.
Oh, there's that true.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I propose changing on WordPress.org itself. I want there to be a way to track the date that it got the accessibility ready tag approval and by whom. Because the thing is no one is reviewing them every time they push an update. Because of course, how could you?
I was for a while. I burnt out.
Just because you're superhuman, Joe.
Yes.
No.
But the reality is that a theme that got accessibility ready last month is arguably probably closer to accessibility ready than one that got it 8 years ago. Unless the theme 8 years ago has never been updated.
Well, no, even
then that has other issues, right?
It's got its own problems. If it hasn't been updated, it's actually not going to be.
Well, it won't show up in search
anymore, so it's kind of irrelevant.
Okay, let's change direction. I think we've definitely exhausted that. Although we probably could talk all day. Yeah.
This is why we have you as a moderator.
What?
Somebody to stop us.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's been a lot of conversation about the changed release schedule for WordPress, and there only being one major release this year instead of 3. How do you think that will impact core accessibility? And should website owners and developers who care about accessibility be worried?
So overall, I think it'll be a benefit to accessibility in WordPress. And that's because it's going to give us time to really look at existing features and improve them. Because the pace of development in WordPress for the last several years has been breakneck. Every release has some kind of big new feature, and it is simply too much to really be on top of all of them. I mean, it's bad enough that at this point we have like 3 radically different systems for implementing themes. And there's so many different pieces to explore in full site editing, and whether it's accessible, it's just overwhelming. But now we've got some time. It's going to slow down. And the thing about minor releases is, well, we're not going to be able to ship major fixes to things that are just massively wrong. If writing.
Can you give an example, like a major fix? Would that be like when you rebuilt the whole image cropping system? Would that be a major fix, or would that be a minor?
I think that would be relatively minor, but probably a major change, like when I removed infinite scroll from the media library. That might be difficult. I think the thing that's going to be, it's always going to be kind of a balancing act of figuring out if something is major or not. But accessibility issues are always considered to be bugs in core if they're an actual violation. So there is a fine line there. There's enhancements in accessibility, which are things that are saying, this is not as good as it could be, but it does meet requirements, so it's an enhancement. But both of those are going to be allowed. It's just a matter of scale. The main thing that is specifically not allowed, because we're only doing minor releases, is we cannot add new files. But that's not going to have any real impact on accessibility. We can edit
because you're
files.
Primarily editing existing files to resolve issues.
Right. The case, I can't imagine a case where we would need to add a new file. There might be cases where we would choose to add one if we wanted to. Like if we're adding a new script, we might choose to put it in its own file as opposed to putting it in like common.js, which is loaded throughout the admin. But that's an edge case. It's unlikely to come up. So I don't think it's a net net loss for accessibility. I think it's going to be great in that it gives us a breather, it gives us some time to get things worked out and polish things. Right now, this particular moment in time, we're in kind of a fuzzy zone of we had to do the bug fix releases to 6.8 before we could even start to plan what's going to be in the later point releases. Because just from a purely practical standpoint, those first few point releases are reserved to things that are urgent. And now we're getting into that zone of now we can plan ahead, we can start to make some determinations about that. It's going to be a lot of work, just figuring out who's going to lead this, who's going to decide whether this can go into the minor release or not, because it's all different than it's been in the past. That's going to be challenging. But there's been a number of people talking about specifically having an accessibility focused release. So awesome. And I've volunteered to lead that if it happens.
Yay!
So I have hopes that there will be some good things. It's going to be awkward for anybody who has gone fully into wanting to implement things in full site editor and build FSE themes, because now new development is basically
paused.
But it's going to be great for people who are just using WordPress as it is rather than anticipating future changes.
Yeah, I'll say honestly, for us, it feels a little bit like stability. I don't know.
Like what?
It feels like what?
Stability.
Oh.
Okay. My partner Steve was like, "This is really bad," but I was thinking, I don't know, like on the websites we're remediating for people, like it's kind of nice to not have to worry about an update coming that breaks something. I don't know. Not that WordPress updates typically break the front end very much, but it's just like we're confusing them in the editor, or it can happen. So I don't know. I don't mind a little bit of a pause.
No,
as long as the accessibility bugs can still get resolved.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds good.
One of the challenges we're coming up with is actually just milestoning. Milestoning a ticket in WordPress is how we decide which release it's going to go into. And right now I'm just milestoning everything for 6.9, even though most of them will go somewhere else because we really have no idea. We don't have a plan.
That makes sense. Just put that over there for now.
But the reality is, for accessibility, a slowdown in feature development that still allows accessibility issues to be dealt with is advantageous.
Yeah, that makes sense. Here's a great follow-up question. Bet, given all of this, do you think WordPress is still the best tool for building accessible websites?
Well, I think it would be foolish to say that WordPress is the best tool for everything, right? And so you have to think about when you're going to choose a platform, you have to think about what is it you're trying to accomplish, and what are your goals, and what are the features that you need, how much money do you have, and what kind of skill levels do you have? And I think when you think about that, and when accessibility is one of the things you need, that WordPress is a great choice, because it's open source, because you have control over your implementation, your particular installation. You can fix whatever needs to be fixed. Unlike, for instance, like in Shopify, a platform like Shopify, there are so much of that core that you can't control. And so in WordPress, you can make those kinds of changes. So I think, it's not always the best choice for everybody, given whatever their other requirements are and their kind of context. But it is often the best choice for accessibility, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not the I'm not the WordPress. I think I've changed my opinion about that as we do e-commerce, and we are looking at sites. We're kind of platform agnostic, and I think there are particular situations where a different choice that gives a different level of, ways that you're controlling kind of how the content comes together, or you're controlling different features that are happening on there. There are choices in particular situations that are better. But I think for a lot of what we're trying to do, we see WordPress is still a great choice for doing that.
Amber,
yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, you know what I will definitely tell you? Don't build a Figma website.
Oh my gosh.
There's
about
some real
Google?
great content out there, Adrian.
Or the
That's what
AI
there's-
builder things that are coming out,
Yes.
right? Where the AI will build you a site, and those are just as bad.
Yeah. Oh, Joe had I watched Joe does a podcast on WP Builds that's about
Yes.
accessibility, and he had one where he
Jamie's.
was looking at
I watched that.
Jamie's Jamie gave an accessible website prompt to AI and had AI build it, and
It was a
it
disaster.
did not do a good job.
Yeah, it was really interesting,
Wow.
honestly, because of the degree to which it resembled sites that I have looked at that were done by people who had kind of a vague knowledge of accessibility. It made so many of the same mistakes, which I think is just one of the characteristics of AI, is that it learns from the examples it's
People.
given, and the fact is those examples are frequently shit.
I mean, well, yeah. Think about this, right? The WebAIM Million says what 96, 97% of websites have accessibility problems. If that's what AI is trained on.
Yeah. There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's why, a lot of times people will ask about AI and accessibility, and it's kind of like, well, like one of the kind of places where we see it being used, especially in like e-commerce, for example, is when sites are missing alt text. And they're trying to get like at least and I say, like do it as a draft, but make sure you're having somebody review it, because the AI is just horrible at writing, at image recognition, but then also understanding that you have the alt text is a description in a particular context. It's really not able to look at that context yet. So like, I think it will get there as it gets better examples and we're feeding it better stuff, but.
So I would quibble with you there. I actually don't think it's going to get there. I think the
You
fundamental
don't think so?
goal of AI doesn't mesh with the fundamental goal of accessibility, and it has a lot to do with context. That AI is going to get better and better at giving a good description of something. It is not going to get better at giving you what you actually need out of alternative text.
Yeah.
I've seen this on like some e-commerce.
Going to get better, but anyway, we'll see.
Amber.
I was just going to say, I've seen on a few e-commerce websites where they're obviously using AI to generate alt text, and the alt text describes like the image, like the photo of a woman wearing a dress or whatever, or like a woman outside on a sunny day. But really the point is this a long sleeve dress or a short sleeve dress? Is it have stripes or is it solid? Right? Like whatever you'd want to know if you were going to buy the dress, not like there's a woman wearing a dress like that. Okay, well, that's not helpful to me in this context.
But that's a general problem. A lot of, even with human alt text, people, they don't understand that product alt text is different than just describing the image. Yep.
So I heard one of those.
I will say, though, this is where like going back to our mission and what we try and do about education, because I think AI can really play a role in speeding up remediation or fixing things, as long as the person controlling the AI knows what they're doing. So, and I keep thinking, I ought to write a blog post about this. We have a super janky plugin that actually has been removed from WordPress.org on our ancient website. And we had accordions built with it that were keyboard functional, but they didn't have all of the right semantics, and they were missing like ARIA expanded, which is horrible. And I kept thinking like, I need to fix this. And, but we couldn't go to the plugin developer because the plugin's been closed. Like it's really old. Right. And so we're like, well, do we hack it? Do we not? And then I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to like copy and paste the whole HTML code for the container that has all of the accordions in it. And I went to ChatGPT and I'm like, this is what I need it to do. And it wrote me JavaScript. I had to go back and forth it a little bit. I had to test it, right? Because there were a couple of things that I was like, okay, well now this works, but it's broken with a mouse, which is sort of interesting, right? Like, but I now have a JavaScript snippet that's in the footer that fixes all of those things that were really bugging me about those accordions on our website. And now I had to understand the accessibility and what the outcome that I needed was, but I never would have been able to write that JavaScript myself, right? And so I do think that AI can play a really useful role in that front, with having people who are like maybe accessibility specialists, but not really great developers. As long as you can communicate what you need and you know how to test and confirm that it works, like, it might be able to help you a lot.
And my biggest concern is things like an accessibility specialist using it and generating this code that they're able to test and make sure, yes, it does all of the accessibility things I need, but it's now introduced a massive security flaw.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's a really difficult thing to make sure that everything's getting reviewed enough.
There are some ways that AI is going to push at least some accessibility issues to be remediated as people try to optimize. So 2 weeks ago, ChatGPT announced that they released a shopping tool. So you can go to ChatGPT, you could say, I want to buy women's running shoes in size 8, and I want them, they need to be for an overpronator, and I need them to and I want the color blue or green, but not yellow or anything else. And you can get it to pull things up now. And Alex Stein tells me, he's been using the AI for shopping for forever because it's such a user nightmare. For Amazon pages may be marginally acceptable, but it's just crazy to get down to the content he's looking for. So what those AI tools are going to do, though, is they're not reading code programmatically. They're really, because there's so much JavaScript on all these pages, they're having to take images of the web page and then read those. And so, for instance, your color contrast better be fixed because it's going to use OCR to read your text. And so when you have color contrast issues that are making it hard to read stuff, that's not going to be great for you and these AI shopping tools. So, and there are some other pieces like that are going to be like, it's going to finally nudge some people to do those optimizations that we wish they had done for people, you know, all along. But that'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Joe, I want to come back to the accessibility ready tag that we talked about a little earlier on. We talked about what it would mean for people, you know, on the user end and purchasing it, and how they might screw that up or not. What would it mean for theme developers in the future, the accessibility ready tag?
I mean, so I'll start by talking about what impact it's had so far. And on the whole, the existence of that tag and the instructions for how to achieve it and those patterns have had an impact. I mean, there are certain issues that I see a lot less of now. The goal in rewriting them at some level is to make that, first, I mean, honestly, modernization is a big part of it. Like, some of that advice is 12 years old, 13 years old. Oh, it's 2025 now. And it's just not, it's not the most relevant advice. It's not the best way of doing anything now. There are things that are just not mentioned because, I mean, clearly WCAG 2.2 had not been published yet. So we want to modernize it and help make it just more approachable, so that somebody can look at it, and even if they're not going to strive for the accessibility ready tag, they can be like, well, I can fix that without any problems. The whole WordPress community, this backwards compatibility thing is huge. And it's just this promise that I'm not going to install an update from you and have it cause my website to fall apart. And that promise, while a valuable thing, can cause some accessibility fixes to get hard to make. You know, like changing default colors, for example, so that now they meet color contrast also means that anybody who is still using one of those default colors has now just had an update to what their website looks like. They might not be happy about that.
Right.
It might not even be a good thing for them, because depending on what other colors they've changed, that actually might now create a color contrast problem in their environment. Like, it's not guaranteed win.
Right.
So some of those things can be hard to change, but something like, you know, the button you're using to trigger your mobile menu doesn't have an accessible name is absolutely something that can be fixed without causing any problems on a website. So it's good to kind of try and narrow that down, and that's probably something we should think about as we're rewriting these. Is pointing out things that can be fixed that have no backwards compatibility concerns.
Do you think, it's interesting, I've thought about this because Drupal, for example, they don't maintain permanent backwards compatibility.
That's
Do
right.
you still think in 2025 this is the best practice for WordPress?
I do not.
Ooh.
And actually, I'm going to tell
I
you
don't.
that I have been strategically breaking backwards compatibility with a couple of my own plugins.
Wow.
Oh, with your own plugins. It's like, as a core committer. Whoa!
Not in core. Core is a little bit more complicated. With my own plugins. And it's purely for accessibility reasons. And it's because, it's like take a look at my calendar. It's my events management plugin. I first built it in 2009. And there is no imaginable way for me to say any of the code from 16 years ago should still be there. And most of it isn't. But
probably not very great code, right?
So
changes need to happen. Like interfaces need to update. And so
when you did that, Joe, did you communicate the fact that things might break to people, or I'm not sure what broke, but did you
provide paths so that people could make decisions in advance that would make their code compatible? I left those paths in place for 15 months before I released the update. And I will tell you,
you deprecate it.
That and
have a deprecation notice.
Completely ignored it.
Well, I was going to say, how many people did it cause problems for when you finally did release it?
I mean, I have no way of knowing that. There's no real.
You didn't get like massive complaints, or
I got complaints.
Hate mail.
Hate mail.
But like numbers, it's hard to assess. But I mean, one of the things that I did is I removed support for, so that plugin had a system in place so that people could edit files within the plugin and then they would be persisted through updates.
Mm-hmm.
Nasty. Don't ever do that.
Yeah.
Really
I'll say I saw recently a notice from Gravity Forms that they are actually removing support for their legacy form mode, which I am so glad for, because the accessibility if you have that setting turned on, like, you don't have field sets, you don't have legends, like there are certain fields that don't function at all. Like it's
And what's the date
good
for that again, Amber? Because a lot of people use Gravity Forms.
It's really soon. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I think it's happening in the next couple of months. And they've been supporting it for a long time just because they wanted to support all these websites that had forms that were built, 10 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to see that they decided, you know what, we're not going to support this. We're going to remove it. And yeah, I'm sure there will be some sites that'll be frustrated because their custom styles on their forms are going to break. But in reality, their forms will be more functional for more people. They might not look as pretty, but
And this does come back down to that whole issue with WordPress and that backwards compatibility thing. And the reason WordPress has to maintain this backwards compatibility promise is that we really don't have any project management. Nobody is saying, here is an overarching long-term strategy. We are going to remove this support in, say, 6 releases.
Mm-hmm.
All we need is being able to be systematic. Like, we just need to be able to say, there is a date, this is going to happen, and then people can plan for it. But instead what happens is we kind of break things randomly by accident. And
yeah. Well, Dave says with Elementor, they give 4 major releases before deprecating code. And he says, but people still don't follow it. I mean, I think the reality is some people, even if with warning, won't.
No, they won't. They just don't believe it. They're like, oh no, this isn't going to affect me.
Well, I think sometimes they're just not even paying attention to that kind of stuff.
A lot of people also don't understand. I mean, the reality is, because WordPress has become a system that's incredibly friendly for non-developers, it has a large percentage of people who will literally be looking at this notification and they'll be like, I don't know what deprecated means. I don't know what release means. I'm just going to throw my hands up and ignore this. And hope
I'm going to have to interrupt. I'm so sorry. We are about a little less than 5 minutes from the end, maybe 4 minutes. Amber, would you like to say a minute about plugins and the accessibility ready tag, and if that's a thing or not?
Oh, we're in the lightning round. Okay, fine. here's my lightning round on
Got
this.
1 minute.
I would love for plugins to focus on accessibility, and I would like for people to more transparently be able to figure out if plugins are going to add accessibility problems to their website, because that is probably where most of the problems I see come from.
I agree.
I don't think it's realistic to think that humans are going to audit plugins for accessibility ready tags. What I would love to see is linting on update. When every time, and I would like to see really visible badges on the plugins, and it could say things like WordPress coding standards, pass, fail, right? Like all of these things, and you can do some accessibility linting. Again, it will not mean that it is an accessible plugin, but it would definitely tell you if there were empty buttons or empty links or like some really obvious, click here, I don't know, some really obvious things that are easy to tell. We could lint for, and that's what I would love to see, because I think more transparency is ultimately what site owners need.
So there's a project you can contribute to for that.
That's an object.
In all my free time. Yeah, what channel in Slack is working on the linting of plugins?
So that's going to be the plugin check plugin, which does have an accessibility
awesome. That's great.
set, and there is work to implement that on to be run on every plugin update.
Cool.
And will it have public badges?
Well, that is not.
That's what I really want.
Making it actually happen, but it needs to actually work and be useful before they can add any badges.
I would vote for the badges.
Badges will be easy to implement later, but Amber's all about for the public transparency and.
Okay, we got 2 minutes. We got 2 minutes, so I have to move along. I'm sorry. Looking ahead, when will WordPress Accessibility Day 2025 take place, and what can people look forward to? Bet.
The event is going to be October 15 and 16. It's 24 hours of accessibility education and presentations. Call for speakers is open now. May 26th is the deadline. As in years past, things looks like it'll be an amazing lineup. We typically have something for everyone. So beginner level items, as well as much more kind of technical presentations, something for everybody in between. Last year, there were 2,488 attendees, and we expect that it will be even bigger this year. So you go to the website right now, put your name on the email list if you're not already on the email list, so that you can get those notices for when we open registrations, which should be coming up sometime in the next couple months.
Awesome.
I want to shout out, we all are wearing different t-shirts. I have 2022, which says make WordPress accessible. There's a orange focus, which one is backwards and one is forwards.
Yeah.
From last year, Isla's is working towards an accessible web. And this year, our t-shirts are going to be blue, and they have WPA.
We apparently lost Amber.
Yep. It has WPAD spelled out in ASL, and you would not believe how hard that was to get that figured out. So we're excited.
Thanks for hopping in there, Bet. I think we might have Amber back. She's moving.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Right at the end, my internet will freeze. But
Joe, any parting words from Joe?
No, I think I'm good. This was a lot of fun. I'm really glad to spend some time with all of you.
Yes. So this brings us to the end of our conversation. I want to thank our special guests for sharing their time and insights. We, as a community, we truly appreciate your generosity within the WordPress community and the thoughtful perspectives you brought today. Thank you to our listeners, all of you, for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this dive into WordPress accessibility, and we hope to see you at WordPress Accessibility Day 2025, live on Zoom, October 15th and 16th. Check out the website for updates. Visit 2025.wpaccessibility.day. That's 2025.wpaccessibility.day. That's it from us. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your gaad.